Oh, hey, I am missing my pet fish. And do you see it? I don't see it, and I don't know where in the world it is. But, all right, well, let's see if we can move on, because that pet fish was actually going to be my little entree, my little entrance, my little welcome to this puzzle that involves fish. But where's my pet fish? Okay, let's do the puzzle anyway and see if you can cheer me up. Now, Carol, Ann, and Liz each bought a toy fish. Oh, my fish. Okay, now, Carol's fish is 8 inches longer than Ann's fish. Liz's fish is 1 inch longer than 3 times the length of Ann's fish. And Ann's fish is 10 inches long. Our challenge is to find the length of each toy fish. Oh, fish. Where's my fish? Okay, I have to focus. So there's lots of information here, and there's many, many steps involved in actually answering this question. So let's figure out what's the thing that we know that's really helpful. Well, the thing that I know is really helpful is we actually are given one of the answers. Ann's fish is 10 inches long. That's awesome. We're supposed to find the length of each fish, and we're told that Ann's fish is 10 inches long. So let's bring that right along. Ann, your fish is 10 inches long. Terrific. Now, let's actually model that answer using a row of squares. So I would need 10 squares in a row. And you can see here, I really have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So this models the 10 inches long. Okay, now let's use this fact about Ann's fish to answer the other questions, because notice that the other questions, Carol's fish, we know something about it in terms of Ann's fish. Liz's fish, we know something about it in terms of Ann's fish. So now that we have Ann's fish as kind of like an anchor, we can now actually find the other ones. So let's actually turn to Carol. So we know that Carol's fish is 8 inches longer than Ann's fish. 8 inches longer means 8 inches more. When I hear more or longer, I'm thinking addition. So, in fact, to figure out the length of Carol's fish, oh, I miss my fish. Okay, what do? Well, we start off with the 10 inches, so I'm going to use a row of squares to represent the length of Ann's fish. And you see how that's the same thing as Ann's fish? In terms of length, anyway. And now I want to do what? I want to add on 8 more inches, because it's 8 inches longer. It's 8 inches more. So 8 plus 10. So if I bring on 8, and you can check this out for yourself, this really is, in fact, whoops, hard to drop in there. There we go. It really is, in fact, 8 more inches. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So this represents 8 inches, this little row of squares. And so all together, we have 10 plus 8. Well, that's 1, 10, and 8, 1, so that's 18. So we see, aha, Carol's fish is 18 inches long. And you see how we're taking what seemed like a very, very complicated question, but through modeling and through just thinking about what we know and picking like the best thing to start, in this case, Ann's fish, we're making progress. Now, what about Liz? So let's do Liz last. Liz is last. But her fish is going to be mighty, because we know that Liz's fish is 1 inch longer than 3 times the length of Ann's fish. 3 times the length of Ann's fish. That is a clue that we need to multiply. 3 times this length, or 3 times 10. So if we want to model that with a row of squares, we take one copy of the length that represents Ann's fish, that's this 10. But then we need 3 of them, because it's 3 times. So that's 1, this is 2, and this is 3. So 3 times 10 is the same thing as having 3 copies of this length of 10. So look at that length. That length is actually representing 3 times this length. 1, 2, 3. And what is 3 times 10? Well, 3 times 10 is 30. So 30 inches. So is the answer 30 inches? No, because there was one extra little fact we forgot to throw in. Liz's fish is 1 inch longer than 3 times. So again, longer than means plus. So the longer again means plus. We have to now throw in just 1 inch. That's just 1 square. So we throw in 1 lone square. 1 lone square. And when we do that, what do we see? Well, we see 10, 20, 30. That was the 30 we got. That's 3 times 10 and 1. And what's 30 and 1? It's the number 31, and in this case, 31 inches. So I told you Liz's fish was mighty. It's 31 inches long. That's a really long fish. And look what we did. We took a question that, in my mind, I think, was very challenging, because there were lots of words and lots of numbers and lots of things about more, 1 inch more or longer than, and so forth, and then 3 times. But the moment we took our time to think about what those words mean and realize that we start with something simple, in this case, we know exactly what Anne's fish has as a length, we could then work our way through and figure out the other fish lengths. Well, it's great to realize the power of mathematics. It will allow us to take things that involve many, many steps and actually make it totally reasonable. So this would be a very happy ending if, in fact, I could find my fish. If you see my fish anywhere, would you please tell my fish that I asked about her and I want her home really soon? Have fun with math, and I'll see you soon.
Okay, so let's do a little bit of practice and modeling. And I want to show you how we can solve multi-step multiplication problems, which is what we're working on for this lesson. Okay, so here's my equation or my story. I'm at the Sea Park. One section in the stadium has 9 rows with 18 seats in each row. And the center of that section, the first 6 rows and 8 seats in each row are in the splash zone. How many seats are now in the splash zone? Okay, so picture yourself at an aquarium, okay? And at this aquarium, there is a stadium or your seats that you're sitting in, okay? Such as just like this. So now we have, this is a picture of that section of the theme park, okay? We know that it has 9 rows, so this represents my 9 rows, okay? And then this are my 18 seats per row. Now, I have my 9 rows and my 18 seats total inside this section. This is my total section. I want to know in the center of this splash zone, okay, how many seats are there? The center of the splash zone, it's telling me, is the first 6 rows and 8 seats in each row. Okay, so probably the center 8 seats is what it is. Okay, so we're going to add that into our picture. We're going to add that splash zone of 6 rows and 8 seats in each row. So now I've drawn my picture of my splash zone. I have my 6 rows because it was 6 rows back. And in that 6 rows, there are 8 seats in each row that are in that splash zone. So now I have my picture of the splash zone of 6 rows and 8 seats, okay? So all in this area right here and here, this is all that splash zone. And I want to find out how many seats are in that splash zone, okay? If I want to know how many seats are in the splash zone, I can take my 6 rows times 8 seats, and I'm going to multiply those two numbers to find out how many in all. So let's do that. I have 8 rows times 6 in each row. 8 times 6. What is the product of 8 times 6? Eight times 6 is 48. So that tells me there are 48 seats in the splash zone, okay? Inside here are 48 seats. Now here's my question. If I want to know how many total there are, how can I find out how many total seats are in the splash or not in the splash zone? If I have 48 seats that are in the splash zone, so those 48 people are going to get wet. To find out how many total seats are not in the splash zone, first we need to find out how many seats altogether are in this auditorium. So I have my 18 seats in a row and my 9 rows. To find out how many total seats are in the stadium, I am going to multiply the 18 seats times 9 rows per seat. So I'm going to multiply 18. Actually, let me type that out for us. It's actually neater and for you guys to read it better. So I have 18, and I'm going to multiply that by 9. 18 by 9. Go ahead and multiply that out. Draw your picture if you need to, and we'll come back and check. Now let's check. If I was going to multiply this, I would probably start by rewriting the problem. Instead of 18 times 9 up and down, I would rewrite it as 9 times 18. And the reason I would do that is that way I can break apart 18 into 10 for one of the 10s plus 8. Okay, so if I do 18 is 10 plus 8, I can then multiply that by 9. So basically I'm distributing. So I end up with 9 times 10 plus 8. And I want to find the product of that. Okay, then I'm going to distribute. I'm going to go, 9 is my driver, 9 times 10. Okay, so 9 went and picked up number 10. And then I'm going to add that to the product of 9, still the driver, times 8. Okay, now I can multiply. 9 times 10 is 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, 90. Plus, and 9 times 8 is 72. So now I have 90 plus 72, which equals 162. So this tells me I have a total of 162 seats in the entire auditorium. Okay, 162 altogether. This 162 includes these 48. So if I now want to find out how many seats are not in a splash zone, I'm going to take my total number of 162 and I'm going to subtract 48. So I'm going to subtract 162 minus 48. And that's going to tell me how many seats are not in that splash zone. 2 minus 8. I can't do that, so I'm going to borrow. 6 10, take 1 away. I now have 5. This becomes 12. 12 minus 8 is 4. 5 minus 4 is 1. And take away 1, take away 0 is 1. So that means there are 114 seats that are not in the splash zone. Okay, so this is an example of one of our multi-step multiplication problems. And I know it was a lot of steps and it probably felt like I was a little bit everywhere. Let's do another practice together. And this time I'm going to ask you to do a little bit more with me. So make sure you have a good piece of paper and pencil to draw your models on and to work your workout on. Okay, here's our second problem that I want you to work with me. Okay. Is at the Sea Park, one section of the Shark Theater has 8 rows with 14 seats in each row. The middle section, 4 rows of 6 seats are reserved. How many seats are not reserved? So let's think about, what do I need to find? I'm trying to find out how many seats are not reserved. That's what I'm trying to find out. How many seats are not reserved? To do that, I'm going to think about the information that the problem gives me. It tells me that one section of the theater Okay, the Shark Theater has 8 rows with 14 seats in each row. Okay. Now, it also tells me that the middle section has just 4 rows with 6 seats in each row. And this is the row that is reserved. Okay. So that's the information that I know. So now let's think about how we can solve this problem and find out how many seats are not reserved, because those sections are in the middle, okay? So if I wanted to draw a picture, okay, it might look something like this. So this is my entire theater, okay? So this is showing my 8 rows, all right? And my 14 seats in each row. All right. So go ahead and draw your picture. And your picture should look something like mine. It doesn't have to be exact, but make sure it's big enough that you can have your middle section drawn in there, because we haven't done that yet. So it's going to have 14 seats across and 8 seats down, or 8 rows down. All right. This is your whole section of that theater. Now, inside that theater is a section that is reserved. The section that is reserved is 4 rows with 6 seats in each row. So I'm just going to draw in the middle my 6 seats and 4 rows. Anywhere in the middle, and it doesn't have to be perfect. Remember, this is just a sketch. And again, I'm still going to label it. So this is my 4 rows and my 6 seats. This is a section that is reserved. Now that I have my picture drawn, and you should have yours drawn too, I want to find out how many seats are not reserved. So, how many seats are not inside my box I just X'd off, because I don't want to count those. To do that, I'm going to have to start by finding out how many seats I have all together. So, I know I have 14 seats, okay, and 8 rows total. So I need to find out how many seats altogether I have in those 8 rows. That means I'm going to multiply my 8 rows. Let me make that a little bit bigger for you guys. My 8 rows times my 14 seats in each row. Okay? Might be a little bit too big. Give me 1 second. There we go. 8 times 14 equals, okay? So just like I did with the previous problem, let's break apart this number a little bit, okay? So I'm going to break up 14 into my tens and ones just to make it more manageable for me to multiply. I have 1 10 in the number 14, so I'm going to break it up into 10, and I'm going to add 4. So 14 is 10 plus 4, okay? I'm still multiplying that by the number 8. So now I have 8 times 10 plus 4. If you don't have this written down, go ahead and write this equation down with me, and I'm going to talk us through it as we solve it, okay? Now, okay, so now let's go ahead and let's distribute 8. My 8, think of him again, like I say, as your bus driver. So 8 is going to multiply by 10, because he's going to go pick up number 10, okay? He's also going to add that. 8 is going to pick up number 4. Okay, so now we have 8 times 10 plus 4, which turns into 8 times 10 plus 8 times 4. You see those two multiplication equations we made? Now we're going to multiply. What is the product of 8 times 10? 80. And we're going to add that to the product of 8 times 4. What is 8 times 4? 32. Very good. Now I can just add 80 plus 32. What is 80 plus 32? Add that up for me, please. Did you get 112? Okay, that's what we should have gotten. So that means there's a total of 112 total seats, okay? Total seats is 112 in the entire stadium or what do they call it? A theater. There's 112 total seats. Out of those 112 seats, we know that there's some that are reserved we can't use. I need to know how many seats I cannot use. I know there are 4 rows of 6 seats each that I'm not allowed to use. So let's find out how many seats that is. I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to multiply the number of rows, which was 4, times the number of seats, that was 6. And that's a number inside that is reserved that I can't use. 4 rows and 6 in each row. Boys and girls, what's 4 times 6? It's 24. So that tells me I have a total of 24 seats that I can't use. Now that I know how many total seats I have in the theater, which is 112, and I know out of those 112 seats, there are 24 seats we're not allowed to use because they are reserved, I can find out how many seats are not reserved by subtracting, okay? I'm minusing 112 minus 132. Because to find out how many are left, those words to me are signaling subtraction. Oops. And you notice I lined up my numbers. Let me make that a little bit bigger for you. And you should write this down on your paper also, like the rest of the equation we've been doing, because it's going to help you to subtract. And you know me, I have to have mine written vertically. So that's why I rewrote it this way. If I have 4 starting my ones, I can't do 2 minus 4. So I have to go next door to my 10s. I have 1 10, I take away, I have 0 10s. Now this 2 becomes a 12. 12 minus 4, I can do that. 12 minus 4 equals 8. Can I do 0 minus 2? No, I cannot. So I need to go borrow. I take from the hundreds, that becomes a 0, and I just give 1 10 to the 10. So that 0 becomes a 10 because I added 10. So now 10 minus 2 equals 8. So this tells me I have 88 seats that are not reserved. So 88 seats that people can still sit in. Okay? The problems you are going to be working on in your lesson today are a little bit difficult and they are multi-step. They're not using numbers that you're not familiar with. We just have to think a little bit about what it's asking and maybe even listen to the question right again. Please ask your teacher for help because we can explain it to you and kind of help you think of it and break the problem apart in different parts if that's what you need, okay? Which is perfectly okay. You got this. We'll practice it today. We'll probably practice it a few more times because it's difficult and it's hard, but you guys can do it. Close this video and you can start on your first problem.